Yo, what's going on, F7 family? Welcome back to the channel. Happy not Constitution Day. Long story short, I thought I saw somewhere that June 21st was US Constitution Day. Turns out it's not until September 17th. See how much I really know? I'm sure you didn't know that either. But for those of you who did, good on you. For the rest of us who didn't, that's what we breaking down today. Today we talking freedom, how we got it and how we keep it. In light of the holiday that I thought was on the 21st, I saw it the perfect opportunity to break down the US Constitution dummy style. That way we can all get a good base understanding of the very document that safeguards our rights and our freedoms as American citizens. I know I can't be the only one wondering what the heck is going on in Washington these days, and it's almost impossible to tell with all the conflicting news stories you see from the biased news outlets. You got everything coming from the right, everything coming from the left, everything coming from the middle. You don't really know what's true. All I really see is a lack of accountability, and that's across the board because that includes us too. And with a lack of accountability, also a whole lot of negligence. People just not caring. Because I tend to believe that if the nation as a whole was truly educated on documents like the US Constitution and understood the Bill of Rights and all of the other amendments that are in there and truly had a grasp on what freedom is, how we got it, and how we can maintain it, I don't think things would look quite the way that they do today. I'm gonna keep this video quick and concise so we can get up out of here. Shout out to the good Lord for giving me the opportunity to make an impact. Shout out to all my F7 soldiers for showing up and staying hungry. Let's get it on. First off, what is the US Constitution? A lot of us think we know we heard of it, we know we learned about it at one point in life. We also know it's kind of important, but do we really know it? The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the United States of America. It is a written document that establishes the framework and principles of the federal government, defines the powers and limitations of its branches, and protects the fundamental rights and liberties of its citizens. The Constitution was drafted during the Constitutional Convention in 1787 and ratified by the states in 1788. It consists of a preamble and 7 articles that outline the structure of the government, including the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, as well as their powers and responsibilities. Additionally, the Constitution includes amendments, with the first 10 amendments known as the Bill of Rights, which protect individual freedoms such as freedom of speech, religion, and the right to a fair trial. The U.S. Constitution has played a crucial role in shaping American governance, serving as a cornerstone of the American spirit, and providing a framework for the rights and responsibilities of citizens. As y'all can see, some pretty significant stuff. The significance of the U.S. Constitution as the supreme law of the United States is multifaceted. The U.S. Constitution's significance lies in its establishment of a framework for governance, protection of individual rights, promotion of the rule of law, stability coupled with adaptability, and its embodiment of American values. The Constitution establishes the framework for the U.S. government, defining its structure, powers, and limitations. It outlines the 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial, and their respective roles, ensuring a system of checks and balances to prevent the abuse of power. The Constitution safeguards fundamental rights and liberties of individuals. The Bill of Rights, a crucial component of the Constitution, guarantees essential freedoms such as freedom of speech, religion, and the right to a fair trial. It sets a precedent for protecting individual rights and has inspired similar protections in other countries. The Constitution establishes the principle of the rule of law, which means that everyone, including government officials, must abide by the law. It ensures that no one is above the law and provides a legal framework for resolving disputes, upholding justice, and maintaining order within society. The Constitution provides a stable foundation for the nation's governance while allowing for necessary adaptations. Its framers incorporated mechanisms for change through the amendment process, enabling the Constitution to evolve over time and remain relevant in a changing society. The Constitution represents the core values and aspirations of the American people. It embodies the principles of liberty, equality, and justice upon which the nation was built. The Constitution is a unifying symbol that fosters a sense of national identity and provides a shared understanding of the principles that bind Americans together. The whole purpose of this video, guys, is not to be some super boring history lesson. The whole purpose of this video is to just kind of raise our levels of awareness when it comes to the documents that were the foundation of our country as we know it. You know, we all live in our own little bubbles and we are all very blessed, and I don't want to speak for other people, but it's hard to not think that a lot of people out there just take a lot of things for granted in today's world, because you have your cell phone, you have your car, you have your podcast and your Netflix, and you got all these things that are just perfect for you. It's hard to really care about things outside of things that don't affect us, right? But at the end of the day, things like this, things like the US Constitution, things like the Bill of Rights, it's very important that we understand these documents. That way we can hold our leaders accountable, the people that we elect to go ahead and represent us on a world stage and to make decisions and to form legislation and to go ahead and almost in a way shape how our lives are going to be lived. That's really the purpose of this video. I just want to raise the level of awareness when it comes to some of these freedom principles. It's one of the things we focus on heavy here at F7, and I believe that right now in this day and age it's more important than ever that we refresh ourselves with these topics. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want to give you guys a little bit of historical context so you can see what the vibe was like here in America before the US Constitution was written. Following the American Revolution, the United States faced significant challenges in establishing a stable and effective system of governance. The initial framework, known as the Articles of Confederation, proved inadequate in addressing these challenges. The weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation became apparent, leading to the need for a stronger and more centralized government. The Articles of Confederation, adopted in 1781, created a loose alliance of independent states with a weak central government. Under this system, the central government lacked the power to regulate commerce, levy taxes, or enforce its decisions effectively. There was no executive branch or national court system, which limited the ability to enforce laws and resolve disputes. These weaknesses resulted in various problems. The national government struggled to raise revenue, leading to financial instability and an inability to pay off war debts. States often pursued their own interests at the expense of the nation as a whole, leading to economic disputes and barriers to interstate commerce. The absence of a strong central authority also created challenges in dealing with foreign affairs and maintaining national security. Recognizing the need for a more effective government, a group of delegates from the states convened in Philadelphia in 1787 for the Constitutional Convention. Their aim was to revise the Articles of Confederation, but soon realized the need for a new constitution altogether. The delegates, including influential figures like James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, and Alexander Hamilton, engaged in intense debates and compromises to shape the U.S. Constitution. The historical context of the American Revolution and the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation provided the impetus for the drafting of the Constitution. The framers sought to create a stronger central government while balancing the preservation of individual liberties and the rights of the states. The resulting Constitution aimed to establish a more effective system of governance that could address the challenges faced by the young nation, provide stability, and protect the rights and interests of its citizens. So it was basically like the Wild West out here. We won the war against the Brits, but we still hadn't locked it down as far as creating a self-sustaining nation. And that's when the Founding Fathers stepped in. They knew that if their newfound freedom was to remain intact, that something needed to be done. And so the Constitution was born. For lack of better terms, the Constitution was basically the blueprint for how the country was going to be set up and how it was going to run. The motivations and goals of the Founding Fathers in drafting the Constitution were shaped by their experiences, the flaws of the Articles of Confederation, and their vision for a stable and prosperous nation. The Founding Fathers recognized the need for a stronger central government that could effectively address the shortcomings of the Articles of Confederation. They sought to establish a government capable of maintaining order, protecting the nation's interests, and representing the United States on the international stage. The Founding Fathers aimed to create a framework that would ensure the unity and cohesion of the newly formed United States. They were concerned about the potential disintegration of the country under the weak central authority of the Articles of Confederation. The Constitution sought to strike a balance between the power of the federal government and the rights of the individual states. Protecting individual rights was a significant goal for the Founding Fathers. Drawing on the principles of the Enlightenment, they sought to establish a government that would safeguard fundamental liberties and limit the potential for abuse of power. The subsequent inclusion of the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, guaranteeing specific rights and freedoms, further demonstrated their commitment to individual rights. The Founding Fathers aimed to establish a system of government that prevented the concentration of power in any single branch or individual. They created a separation of powers among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, with each having specific powers and responsibilities. The system of checks and balances ensured that no single branch could dominate the others, thus safeguarding against tyranny. The Founding Fathers were concerned about the long-term stability of the nation. They aimed to create a constitution that could endure and adapt to the changing needs and circumstances of the country. The Constitution's provision for amendments allowed for future generations to modify the document while maintaining its core principles. Overall, the motivations and goals of the Founding Fathers centered around establishing a stronger, more effective central government that protected individual rights, preserved the unity of the nation, balanced power, and provided a stable foundation for the United States to thrive. Man, these dudes are probably rolling around in their graves seeing all the craziness happening in Washington these days. The structure of the U.S. Constitution establishes a system of government with three separate branches: the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. The legislative branch is responsible for making laws. It is composed of Congress, which consists of two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Senate has equal representation for each state, with 2 senators per state, while the number of representatives in the House is based on each state's population. For example, California, 52, Delaware, 1. It's all about size. Congress has the power to propose and pass legislation, regulate commerce, levy taxes, declare war, and oversee the federal budget. The executive branch is headed by the President of the United States, who is elected by the people and serves as the chief executive. The President is responsible for enforcing laws, commanding the armed forces, conducting foreign affairs, and appointing key officials. The executive branch also includes the Vice President and the President's cabinet, consisting of department heads who advise the President. The judicial branch is responsible for interpreting and applying the law. It is headed by the Supreme Court, the highest court in the country. The Supreme Court, along with other federal courts, has the authority to hear cases involving constitutional issues, federal laws, and disputes between states. The Supreme Court's decisions are binding and have far-reaching implications for the interpretation of the Constitution and the nation's laws. Included in the structure of the Constitution is the system of checks and balances. The Constitution establishes a system of checks and balances to prevent the concentration of power in any single branch. Each branch has certain powers that can serve as checks on the others. The legislative branch can check the executive branch by approving presidential appointments and treaties, as well as by impeaching and removing the president or other executive officials. The executive branch can check the legislative branch through veto power, proposing legislation, and implementing and enforcing laws. The judicial branch can check both the legislative and executive branches by reviewing the constitutionality of laws and executive actions, ensuring they align with the principles outlined in the Constitution. This system of checks and balances ensures that no single branch becomes too powerful and helps maintain the separation of powers, fostering accountability, and preventing abuse of authority within the government. It's a lot to kind of take in, folks, but that's why it is so critical that we get a good understanding of what's going down in Washington, what's going down in our state capitals, and in courtrooms all across the United States. The system of checks and balances is in place, but I tend to believe that they like to scratch each other's backs more than hold each other accountable, knowing that the United States population is so uneducated on the very topic that they won't even tell the difference. It's really just time to wake up and all embrace some personal accountability and start educating ourselves on these things. That way we can hold our leaders accountable as well. That doesn't mean getting violent either. That means leading with truth, with integrity, and fighting to maintain the freedoms that the founding fathers set in place for us in the late 1700s. The principles underlying the U.S. Constitution include popular sovereignty, federalism, separation of powers, and individual rights. Popular sovereignty is the principle that the ultimate source of political power resides with the people. The Constitution establishes a government that derives its authority from the consent of the governed. This principle is reflected in the democratic processes, such as elections, where citizens have the power to elect representatives and participate in decision-making. Federalism is the division of power between a central government and the individual state governments. The Constitution establishes a federal system in which powers are shared between the national government and the states. The federal government has authority over issues of national concern, such as defense and foreign policy, while the states have powers over local matters, such as education and law enforcement. The principle of separation of powers refers to the division of government functions amongst the three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. The legislative branch, Congress, makes the laws, the executive branch, the President, enforces the laws, and the judicial branch, the Supreme Court and the federal courts, interprets the laws. This separation ensures a system of checks and balances, preventing any one branch from becoming too powerful and protecting against the abuse of power. The Constitution protects individual rights and liberties. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, guarantees essential freedoms such as freedom of speech, religion, and the right to a fair trial. These rights are intended to safeguard individual autonomy, promote equal protection under the law, and provide a framework for the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. These fundamental principles, popular sovereignty, federalism, separation of powers, and individual rights, reflect the values and aspirations of the Founding Fathers. They form the bedrock of the Constitution, shaping the system of governance and ensuring a balance between central authority and individual freedoms. Now, while we know the entire U.S. Constitution as a whole is important, the first 10 amendments, known as the Bill of Rights, is considered to be the most popular and the most well-known amendments of the Constitution. I'm going to list out each amendment in the Bill of Rights, highlighting the rights they protect. The First Amendment protects several fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, and the right to petition the government. The Second Amendment protects the right of the people to keep and bear arms, allowing for the formation of militias and for individuals to possess firearms. The Third Amendment prohibits the government from quartering soldiers in private homes during peacetime without the consent of the homeowner. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. It requires that search warrants be issued only upon probable cause and that they describe the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. The Fifth Amendment guarantees various rights in criminal proceedings, including protection against self-incrimination, the right to due process of law, and the prohibition of double jeopardy, being tried twice for the same offense. The Sixth Amendment ensures the rights of individuals accused of crimes, including the right to a speedy and public trial, the right to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, the right to confront witnesses, and the right to legal counsel. The Seventh Amendment preserves the right to a jury trial in civil cases that exceed a certain monetary value. Eighth Amendment prohibits excessive bail, excessive fines, and cruel and unusual punishments. The Ninth Amendment states that the rights enumerated in the Constitution are not the only rights that individuals possess. It recognizes that people have other rights not specifically listed. The 10th Amendment reserves powers not delegated to the federal government, to the states, or to the people. It emphasizes the concept of federalism and the division of powers between the national and state governments. These amendments collectively safeguard a range of individual rights, including freedom of expression, religion, and assembly, protection against unwarranted searches and seizures, guarantees in criminal proceedings, and limits on government power. They play a crucial role in preserving the liberties and rights of individuals within the United States. It is so crucial that we continue to educate ourselves, our families, our friends, and the ones we love, so that way our freedoms don't start disappearing. There are many amendments outside of the Bill of Rights that have led to a more successful, unified nation. Here are some of these notable amendments. The 13th Amendment in 1865. This amendment abolished slavery and involuntary servitude in the United States. It was a landmark moment in American history, bringing an end to the institution of slavery and establishing freedom for millions of enslaved individuals. The 15th Amendment in 1870. This amendment prohibits the denial of voting rights based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. It aimed to protect the voting rights of African American men, granting them the right to participate in the political process. The 19th Amendment in 1920. The 19th Amendment granted women the right to vote. It marked a significant milestone in the women's suffrage movement, recognizing and securing women's rights to participate in elections and have their voices heard in the democratic process. These amendments highlight important social and political changes in American history, expanding the scope of rights and addressing issues of equality and representation. They demonstrate the dynamic nature of the Constitution and its ability to evolve over time to meet the changing needs and values of the nation. Nothing ever stays the same. Things are always changing. In a world where we continue to evolve as a species and technology keeps advancing faster and faster, it's so crucial that we have the ability to amend and improve this document to maintain our freedoms amidst the sway of the social landscape. With changing times also comes changing interpretations. The interpretations of the Constitution have indeed evolved over time, often shaped by landmark Supreme Court cases that have had significant impact on constitutional law. A few notable examples would be Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954. This landmark case declared racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional, overturning the separate but equal doctrine established in Plessy v. Ferguson in 1896. It played a crucial role in advancing the civil rights movement. Roe v. Wade in 1973. This case recognized a constitutional right to privacy, including a woman's right to choose to have an abortion. The court's decision established guidelines for state regulation of abortion and remains a contentious issue in American politics. United States v. Nixon in 1974. In this case, the court ruled that the President of the United States does not have absolute executive privilege and must comply with a subpoena for evidence in a criminal investigation. It established limitations on presidential power and affirmed the principle of the rule of law. These cases represent just a few examples of how the interpretation of the Constitution has evolved over time. They demonstrate the court's role in shaping constitutional law, addressing societal changes, and ensuring that the Constitution remains a living document capable of adapting to new challenges and circumstances. Real quick story, I was actually summoned for jury duty in March of this year, March 2023, and I was actually selected to be a part of the jury, and at first I was a little annoyed, but it really did give me an entire different perspective and a newfound respect for the whole process itself, because it showed me that with these court cases, depending on if it's a simple traffic violation or something absolutely extreme, it is so crucial that we have 12 random strangers be forced to sit down, listen to the testimony of both sides, and come to a clear, unanimous decision, right? Otherwise, if it was just left to the police and the judge and whoever might be in the court system, it could just get real ugly. It just showed me how important it is for people like us to have to go and stand jury duty. So if you get someone for jury duty, try not to be too pissed off. Use it as a learning experience. Try to look at it with that glass half full perspective and look at it as a way for you to serve the community, because that's exactly what you're doing. The U.S. Constitution holds enduring impact and significance in American society, from guaranteeing us our rights and liberties, providing stability through the rule of law, outlining a framework for governance, the adaptability in the amendment process to serve an ever-changing societal landscape, to simply being a symbol of national identity representing the ideals of freedom. The U.S. Constitution's impact and significance extends far beyond its original drafting, and its significance to each and every American citizen cannot be taken for granted. Alright fam, that was it. I don't want to take too much more of y'all time. This was already a long video as it is. I hope you guys got a lot of value today. I hope you guys learned something. Share this with somebody you know. Share this with a family member. Share this with a friend. Share this with someone that you think might need a refresher on some of these topics, because it's so important that we not only understand how we got our freedom, but also how to maintain it. Otherwise, there might come a day where our freedom starts slipping and it might be too late. That's it for me, y'all. If you guys like this content, please make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. It means the world to me. Also helps out with the YouTube algorithm. Hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day. Stay safe, stay positive, stay leaning on Jesus because he loves you. And I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace out.